average is 4 to 6 liters. She's 5 feet tall, weighs 90 pounds. Let's say her cardiac output is 4. This young man over here, his cardiac output is 6 liters. All right? So you have these two patients in 3 South, let's say post-cabbage. All the open hearts and third floor, they're SpO2 monitor, right? We monitor the SpO2, cardiac output, index, SPR. With the open hearts, we want to make sure before we extubate, the cardiac index is going to be how much? Greater than at least 2, right? If the index drops, we can wean the patient to CPAP, do all kind of things, but we're not going to extubate. It becomes a problem if the cardiac index drops. So normal cardiac index is greater than 2. That's good. Her cardiac index is 2. What do you think about his cardiac index? He's 300 pounds, 7 feet tall. 2. Doesn't matter if you weigh 10 pounds or if you're a King Kong. 2. So how that works? So cardiac output index is based on what? Your BSA, body surface area, how the size of your body. So cardiac output divided by BSA, the body surface area. Her cardiac output is 4 divided by her BSA is what? Let's say 2 meters squared. 4 divided by 2, you can end up with 2, right? Cardiac index. This guy, his cardiac output is 6 liters. That divided by, but his body surface area is 3. You can end up with 2. So with the open hearts, as long as your cardiac index is higher than 2, we're okay. Now we're going to go over next page. What happens if the cardiac index drops? You have a patient post-cabbage. You have the patient on CPAP. 40%, blood gas looks good, and then all of a sudden the blood pressure drops. We look at the SpO2 monitor, cardiac output is only 2.5, index is 1.3. So we're not going to extubate. We need to figure out what's the problem. So what's the first thing we're going to check? Number 1. We're going to check the CVP. Maybe the patient has hypovolemic shock. Just needs some fluid. What's the best medication for hypovolemic shock? Normal saline, right? CVP is low, 1 or 2, we get fluid. So let's say the CVP is okay. What else are we going to check? The second thing. See, these are the type of questions they're going to ask in ACCS to give you a patient like this. H&H. We're going to check the H&H. Maybe the patient is bleeding. With the open hearts, they all come with a chest tube. What's the bleeding in the chest tube should be less than what? Before we extubate? Less than 200. If the bleeding is more than 200, it's no bueno. And we have to call, maybe the patient go back to OR. So we check the H&H. That can cause the cardiac output index to drop. What's the number 3 with the open hearts? We're going to check the albumin level. Normal albumin should be 3 to 5. If the albumin drops, let's say it's 1.5, no bueno. So what we're going to do, we give albumin. Albumin, what is it going to do? It regulates the osmotic pressure, right? It pulls the fluid from the tissues and take it into capillaries. Your blood pressure goes up. So let's say the albumin, we did that, the blood pressure is still low, index is low. What are we going to do, number 4? The vitamin drip. If you have a cardiac patient, STEMI, went to cath lab, chest pain, they have a low EF. EF is 30%. So the problem is what? The pump. Heart is not pumping. So we do the obedient drip. That's gonna, blood pressure goes up and output. And the last one, number 5, if we did all this and still the patient is hypotensive, what are we gonna do? What is the problem now? So we look at the CVP, it's 20. The pulmonary artery wedge pressure is 28, way up there. Chest X-ray is pulmonary edema. Now patient is still hypotensive, index is low. How are we gonna fix this? We already did the albumin, we did the vitamin drip. Cut it out. Huh? Balloon pump.
Would you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, I was just thinking Archer's not working.
Yeah,
Sorry,
those-
it's just not
The balloon pump.
working.
So we gotta put a balloon pump. And then when the blood pressure goes up, then we do Lasix drip.
You do the basics, you know, the extra.
So balloon pump. So this usually happens in rapid response. With a rapid response, patient is hypotensive, post-cabbage, blood pressure in 70s, and the patient is pulmonary edema. We can't give Lasix, blood pressure is going to drop even more. So the first thing we do is albumin. Well, we put patient on BiPAP to help with the breathing, albumin, and then transfer to ICU, do a vitamin drip, and then they'll be okay. This usually happens in a lot of rapids. And they usually do Lasix drip, where the EF is low, less than 30%. So if you look at the next page, we have a balloon pump, Impala LVAD. A balloon pump, what does it do? So 2 things. It increases the coronary artery perfusion and increases your cardiac output. How does it work? When the balloon inflates, this is where the balloon is right here. The balloon is right here. When the balloon inflates, it pushes the blood into coronary arteries. Well, actually it's not here. Coronary artery, where the aorta is. It pushes the blood into coronary arteries. You increase the coronary artery perfusion. And when it deflates, the blood goes back to here. You increase cardiac output. That's how it works. If a balloon pump doesn't work, we're going to do Impala. Now Impala works. Well, there's a little catheter that goes in the groin, goes up here. What it does, it suctions the blood from the left ventricle and dump it right here at the aorta. Increase cardiac output. If Impala doesn't work, we do LVAD. Same thing, you have a little pump right here. You attach it to the left ventricle. The blood goes to the pump and it pumps the blood to the aorta. You increase cardiac output. When you end up on LVAD, you're going to need a heart transplant. Now let's look at the SVO2. They ask you a lot of questions on SVO2 for some reason. Normal saturation is how much? 100%, let's say. Capillaries, the tissue, they extract how much oxygen to maintain to maintain oxygen consumption. Tissue, they extract 25% of oxygen from the capillaries to maintain oxygen consumption. So your saturation is 100%. The tissue organs, they extract 25%. You're going to end up with how much? 75. That's your SDO2. Whatever is left over, not used. And average oxygen consumption in your organs, in your tissues is how much? Average to use 200 cc's of oxygen per minute. On the next page, what happens if your SpO2 drops? Let's say you have an open heart, post-CABG, SpO2 is 75%, you're on CPAP, kind of getting ready to extubate, but and all of a sudden the SpO2 drops to 50%. So the number one thing we're going to do is the secondary to increased oxygen consumption. What are examples of that? What causes the oxygen consumption to go up? Pain, fever, restless, agitated, increased work for breathing, any one of those. Let's say the patient is not in pain, no fever, not agitated. Your SpO2 is reading 50%. What is the number one thing for that? We have a decreased oxygen delivery. So with the decreased O2 delivery, what's the number one? Number one thing causes decrease. We're going to look at this SaO2, the saturation. Maybe the patient is hypoxic. Your saturation is only 85%. So it causes the SpO2 to go down. What's the second thing that causes the SpO2 to go down? Your saturation is good. We're going to look at H&H. If your H&H is low, you're in hemorrhagic shock, even if patients start bleeding in the chest tube. So less oxygen delivered to the tissue causes the SpO2 to go down. They're going to ask you these at ACCS.